Hand a Capuchin monkey a slice of cucumber as a reward for a simple token exchange, and she will complete the task and eat calmly. Then the environment changes. The monkey watches the subject in the adjacent cage complete the exact same task and receive a grape, a food with significantly higher value. The first monkey's compliance instantly vanishes. She refuses the token exchange, stares at the researcher, and forcefully flings the cucumber out of the enclosure. This animal possesses zero concept of religion. She has no theology and no supernatural oversight, yet she demonstrates a visceral behavioral reaction to unfairness. This arc has spent 10 days dismantling the stories we assume are simple. Today, we are actively setting theology aside. We are not adjudicating whether any specific faith is true, false, or ethically superior to a secular worldview. We are analyzing the evolutionary biology and moral psychology of where human moral behavior comes from. Decades of primate research demonstrate that the raw emotional roots of empathy and cooperation existed millions of years before humans practiced any organized religion. While these biological instincts clearly exist in our evolutionary lineage, the scientific community fiercely debates whether they prove religion was unnecessary for building large-scale human civilization. The foundation of this debate rests heavily on primatologist Frans de Waal's observations at the Yerkes National Primate Research Center. De Waal documented consistent pro-social behavior in chimpanzees, observing high-ranking males stepping in to act as impartial arbiters and physically separate combatants to settle disputes within their group. He also recorded distinct consolation behaviors, where an uninvolved chimpanzee will deliberately approach, embrace, and comfort another individual who recently lost a conflict. Researchers define these actions as emotional precursors to morality. They function seamlessly in populations entirely devoid of religious instruction. To test these observations formally, De Waal and Sarah Brosnan designed the 2003 Capuchin token exchange experiment. When both monkeys received the identical baseline reward of a cucumber slice, they performed the task willingly, complying more than 95% of the time. Introducing the grape to only one partner triggered a sharp drop in compliance from the shortchanged monkey. Researchers categorize this reaction as inequity aversion, an evolved intolerance for unequal outcomes. The wider scientific community immediately scrutinized the finding. In 2004, Clive Wynne published a commentary in the journal Nature challenging the inequity aversion model. Wynne proposed the frustration effect. The monkey throwing the cucumber may simply be angry at the sight of an unattainable grape nearby, operating independently of any complex social calculus about fairness toward its partner. The Capuchin reaction remains a genuine evolutionary building block, but claiming it demonstrates true human-level morality overstates the settled science. Comparative psychologists define the behavior as first-order or disadvantageous inequity aversion, reacting negatively when you get less for the same effort. This survival mechanism requires only noticing you are shortchanged, an instinct documented across capuchins, dogs, and chimpanzees. The far rarer cognitive response is second-order, or advantageous inequity aversion. This occurs when an individual actively objects to receiving an unfair advantage over a partner for the exact same task. Second-order aversion means refusing your own better reward until the imbalance is corrected. It appears reliably in young humans and occasionally in great apes, but has not been convincingly demonstrated in capuchins. Reacting to being shortchanged secures your own biological resources. Refusing an unfair advantage requires evaluating the other party's position, moving significantly closer to the reasoned fairness we define as morality. Moving from individual cognition to early human group dynamics, anthropologist Christopher Boehm conducted extensive cross-cultural research on hunter-gatherer bands. These early foraging societies operated entirely without centralized religious institutions, written law, or formal government. Boehm documented a reverse dominance hierarchy. When a single member attempts to bully others or hoard resources, the wider group collectively and actively suppresses them through gossip, ridicule, and coordinated ostracism. This egalitarian enforcement provides direct proof that organized moral systems successfully operate at a small scale without any appeal to supernatural authority. Evolutionary psychologist Michael Tomasello's research explains the cognitive jump required to build these cooperative human networks. Tomasello found that while chimpanzees understand basic reciprocity, they strictly track it as a transactional history of favors between individuals. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Human children, by contrast, display joint intentionality. They understand that a mutual agreement creates a collective obligation, a sense of we, that functions entirely independent of their past transactional history with a specific partner. Joint intentionality combined with collective enforcement gave early humans a robust, functioning moral order perfectly suited for small, familiar groups, long before the invention of organized religion. Developmental psychology isolates this innate capacity even further, relying on research from Paul Bloom at the Yale Infant Cognition Center. Bloom tested infants as young as 3 to 6 months old. He showed them simple puppet shows featuring a geometric shape struggling up a hill, which was either assisted by a helper shape or pushed down by a hinderer shape. When given the choice of which puppet to reach for, over 80, a monkey throwing a cucumber is acting on an inherited emotional reaction. A human reasoning through why inequality is wrong is performing a deliberate act of moral reasoning. This reveals an active disagreement in the field. Evolutionary biology successfully charts the origins of helpful instincts, but philosophy argues those biological instincts do not equate to a system of moral accountability. To resolve this limitation, we return to Frans de Waal to see how his own framework evolved over the course of his career. De Waal updated his position to state that organized religion did not originate the moral law, but was likely developed to bolster it. Biological morality has a severe physical limit. Primate-style fairness instincts and hunter-gatherer ostracism only function in face-to-face networks where everyone knows everyone's reputation. This physical limitation connects directly to psychologist Ara Norenzayan's Big Gods theory. Once societies grew too large and anonymous for informal reputation tracking, informal ostracism failed. A shared belief in an all-seeing, punishing deity stepped in to serve as a substitute enforcement mechanism. Large-scale, stranger-inclusive cooperation required a cultural technology to succeed, where inherited biological instincts physically could not reach. We can observe this transition at the monumental hunter-gatherer site of Göbekli Tepe. Erecting these pillars required massive, coordinated group labor, which depended entirely on a shared code of cooperation. The archaeological record dismisses the assumption that one cleanly preceded the other. Large-scale cooperation and shared ritual behavior developed together in a tangled coevolution. The raw emotional materials for fairness and empathy clearly evolved first, millions of years before human gods. But the cultural machinery required to extend that morality to millions of anonymous strangers arrived on a completely separate timeline. The honest answer to did morality or religion come first is that it is a flawed question. It bundles the evolutionary origin of a feeling with the cultural scaling of a civilization.